topic is all about human rights and social justice. But first, I will going to discuss what is human rights. Human rights are the basic rights and freedoms that belong to every person in the world from birth until death. Okay, human rights, ito yung mga basic rights and freedoms. Pag sinabi nating freedoms, kalayaan, and it was belong to every person. Bawat tao ay may karapatan from birth until death. Mula sa pagkapanganak hanggang tayo ay mamatay. Okay, nasabi ko kanina na basic rights. Human rights are basic rights. So, these basic rights are based on shared values like dignity, fairness, equality, respect, and independence. Aside from that, these values are defined and protected by law. Meron tayong law, or sa law natin may mention na Republic Act number 10368, Human Rights Victims Reparation and Recognition Act of 2013, Section 11 of Article 2 of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, which declares that the state values dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. Ibig sabihin, every person has the rights, and every person na bawat tao ay kailangan meron tayong karapatan na, for example, ito yung sa dignidad, sa equality, sa respect, may karapatan tayong respetuhin ng bawat isa, at meron din karapatan sa atin ng bawat isa na respetuhin natin sila. To move forward, I will going also to explain what is humanity. Humanity is the human race which includes everyone on earth. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng meron sa mundo, it can be called as a human race. Tayong mga tao. And it is also a word for the qualities that make us a human. Kung ano yung mga characteristics or qualities natin bilang isang tao, pwedeng tawagin na humanity. Such as the ability to love and have a compassion, be creative, and not to be a robot or alien. Ibig sabihin, pagpapakatao. I have here the example, which is treating someone with kindness. Yun na yung sinabi ko kanina sa human rights na karapatan ng isang tao ang respetuhin natin siya at tratuhin natin siya bilang isang tao rin. So, it was sa noong unang panahon, people were puzzled on finding a meaning with this that will surely fit this so-called humanity, kasi nahihirapan silang hanapan ng definition ang humanity, kasi nga may iba-ibang tao na iba yung pagkakaintindi nila sa humanity. But as what I have said, that humanity is ito yung pagtrato natin sa kapwa natin with kindness and respect. Okay, so as I will going to connect this theme, human rights quest for meaning, so to our topic, it was stated that during the rise of the first human communes, there was no concept of human rights. Ibig sabihin, noong unang panahon noong una sa mga naunang grupo ng mga tao noon, is walang tamang pagkakaunawa or walang tamang definisyon, walang tamang salita na naglilinaw kung ano ba talaga ang tinatawag na human rights o karapatang pantao. Walang nakakapagsabi, walang nakakapag-define kung ano yung tinatawag na human rights. So, the status and roles of individuals were recognized by their own groups. Ibig sabihin, halimbawa sa isang grupo ng mga tao, halimbawa ako sa isang grupo ng mga tao, so nare-recognize lang yung status ko or yung katayuan ko, yung papel ko sa ang tanging may alam lang nung status ko or role ko sa grupo namin is yung mga kagrupo ko lang din. While kapag nasa outside of group ako, I was subject to the abuses. Ibig sabihin, yung mga dating sinaunang tao is kapag nasa outside sila, wala sila sa kanilang territory, ibig sabihin, they were near to an abuse. Ibig sabihin, simuno sila sa mga taong na nakakaranas ng pang-aabuso. Kapag nandun sila sa mga taong hindi alam ang kanilang pagkakakilanlan. Okay, so nasabi doon na they were subject to the abuses and attacks by those who did not recognize the status. So yun na nga, pag nasa ibang grupo sila ng mga tao, ibig sabihin hindi nila alam yung katayuan ng isang tao. So ibig sabihin, medyo mas napapalapit sila sa tinatawag natin na pang-aabuso kasi nga hindi nila alam kung ano yung katayuan ng isang tao sa kanyang grupo. Okay, so let's proceed to the early history of rights. Okay, history siya ng karapatan. Sa unti-unting paglaki ng commune o grupo, doon naman sila nagkaroon ng social structure. Pag sinabi natin social structure, ibig sabihin doon sila nagkaroon ng kaayusan onto their system or sa kanilang mga sistema, or let's just say on their laws siguro, kung paano or on the other hand, or in other words, stable arrangement. Doon naman sila, habang lumalaki yung commune nila or group nila, doon naman sila nagkaroon ng idea onto stable arrangement. Thus, this helped create social hierarchies. Ibig sabihin ng social hierarchies, yun na nga yung sinabi ko kanina, kaya kaayusan sa kanilang sistema. Ibig sabihin, yung mga law nila, inayos nila. Kung noon, hindi masyado identified ang status ng isang tao, na-incline sila sa abuse. So ngayon, inayos nila ito onto a social structure. Okay. So, the social structure, particularly in politics and religions, ushered in the rise of monarchs. So, sa ginawa nilang social structures, doon naman nag-rise ang social monarchs. Ibig sabihin, nagkaroon sila doon ng monarchia that became the symbols of power and authority. Yun yung naging simbolo ng power at authority. Ibig sabihin, lakas at otoridad. In which, yung mga rulers such as the kings and emperors claimed that they derived their rights to rule from God. Ibig sabihin, yung pag-rule nila, pamamahala nila is, it was derived from their right to rule from God. Ibig sabihin, from God. Thus, legitimized by their faith and reinforced by their people's belief of a higher being. Ibig sabihin, nag-base sila sa kanilang paniniwala. Paano sila mag-rule? Binasin nila sa kung paano yung paniniwala nila. Doon sila nagbase. Okay. So, during this kind of rule, power was centralized. Ibig sabihin, sa rule na ito, mas nanaig ang power, ang lakas. So, power was centralized and privileges of people, such as having their rights protected by law. Yun na nga yung nagkaroon sila ng karapatan na kung saan protektado siya ng batas. Were limited to a select few. Ibig sabihin, limitado lang. Kasi nga, as such, these rights were mostly reserved to those close to the ruler. Ibig sabihin, yung rights na tinatawag dito sa social structures na inayos pa ng mga unang commune is, ibig sabihin, reserve only. Ibig sabihin, para lang siguro ito sa mga tao na malapit sa ruler. Ibig sabihin, halimbawa malapit ako sa mayor. So, ibig sabihin, parang may magaganap na special treatment sa akin kasi malapit ako sa mayor. Ganun yung tinatawag na reserved only for those close to the ruler. Okay, but however, not all rulers from the past. Hindi lahat ng mga rulers noon ay ganun nila tratuhin ng mga kagrupo nila na kung saan merong special treatment. However, are the same. There were great kings. Meron din namang tayong mga great kings who recognize the value of human life and the importance of protecting human rights while ensuring equity, pagkakapantay-pantay of opportunity in their kingdom. So hindi naman lahat ng mga ruler noon is hindi fair ang treatment nila sa nasasakupan nila. Meron din naman tayong mga great kings kung saan nagkaroon sila ng ideya na ang human rights o human life ay importante at kailangan nating protektahan ang human rights ng isang tao, and as long as ensuring the equity and of opportunity in their kingdom. Ibig sabihin, pagkakapantay-pantay ng oportunidad sa kanilang pamumuno. Ibig sabihin, kapag ako ang ruler, dapat pantay-pantay yung pagkatrato ko sa mga nasasakupan ko, walang tinatawag na special treatment. Okay, so sino nga ba silang mga great kings na na-recognize nila yung tinatawag na human importance, value ng human rights or human life? Okay, one of them was Cyrus the Great. Okay, who ruled Persia from 600 to 530 before Christ. Okay, so the United Nations pinpoint the origin of human rights the year 539 before Christ, when the troops of Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon. Ibig sabihin, na-recognize ng United Nations ang origin. Ibig sabihin, pinagmulan ng human rights, pinagmulan ng karapatang pantao ng matalo ng grupo ni Cyrus the Great ang Babylon. Okay, so ano ba yung ginawa ni Cyrus the Great? So, Cyrus freed the slaves, declared that all people had the right to choose their own religion. So, si Cyrus the Great, pinalayan niya yung mga mga nakulong or mga slaves. Pinalayan niya, and he declared that all people had the right to choose their own religions. Ibig sabihin, lahat daw ng tao ay may karapatang pumili ng relihiyong kanilang tatahakin, relihiyong kanilang paniniwalaan, through which and establish racial equality. Ibig sabihin, nagkaroon siya ng pinalawak niya yung tinatawag na racial equality. Ibig sabihin, pagkakapantay-pantay ng mga tao. Or how will they interact and live together? Ibig sabihin, paano sila makipaghalubilo sa ibang mga tao. Halimbawa, isa akong Muslim, isa siyang Christian, so fair dapat yung treatment na sa amin, even though magkaiba kami ng religion. Now, let's proceed to the emergence of international relations and human rights. Okay, so ang pagkakaroon or the appearance of international relations and the human rights. Okay, the two wars which nearly eradicated half of the world both called for nations to unite, and in those instances became the turning point in global affairs. One of those after World War I, nation formed the League of Nations. So, sa emergence of international relations and human rights, dito nagkaroon ng League of Nations, which was formed, the League of Nations signed by 44 states during the Paris Peace Conference of 1919. So, this League of Nations also known as the International Peacekeeping Organization. The first official attempt in creating an international association. So, the United States, despite of being one of the first proponents of the League of Nations, later on chose not to be part of it for the reason that they believe in isolationism and didn't want to get involved in Europe's affairs. So, sa kabila ng ang United States is sila yung pinaka-nangungunang miyembro ng League of Nations, but kumbaga, bumitaw sila on being one of the members of League of Nations kasi ayaw nilang mapabilang sa Europe's affairs. Ibig sabihin naniniwala sila sa tinatawag na isolationism. Ibig sabihin pakikipaghiwalay. Ayaw nilang sumali sa anumang magiging ugat ng pag-aaway maging sa other country. Okay. So, ngunit sa kabila ng pagbitiw ng United States bilang isa sa mga miyembro, the League of Nations still have the achievements. So, kahit bumitaw ang United States bilang kauna-unahang o pinaka-nangungunang miyembro sa League of Nations, nagkaroon pa rin ng mga achievements ang League of Nations. Ito yung creation of an international court, creation of international bodies, policy of disarmament, settlement of pacts and treatment, aversion and arbitration of conflict, renouncement of war, Kellogg-Briand Pact. Now, okay, the last but not the least is the renouncement of war by Kellogg-Briand Pact. Okay, so there had to be an unanimity for decisions that were taken. Unanimity make it really hard for the League to do anything. So the League suffered big time from the absence of major powers. So maraming bumitiw sa mga miyembro ng League of Nations. That's why naging mahirap na maitayo or maisakatuparan ng the League of Nations ang kanilang mga aims on their organization. Especially when the Germany, Japan, Italy ultimately left and the lack of US participation. So malalaking bansa ang umalis or bumitaw bilang miyembro ng League of Nations. Okay. After World War II, the League of Nations was replaced by the UN or United Nations. The United Nations established on October 1945 and other is it echoed good feedback. So napalitan ang League of the Nations ng tinatawag na United Nations o UN, which has echoed a good feedback. Ibig sabihin maraming nagagusto, maraming naging magandang feedback onto establishing this kind of this United Nations. This is one of their aim. It aspired to end all wars, means they aim to maintain peace, and also the United Nations also aspires to promote human rights. From 51 founding states, the UN has 193 members. Members from the nation has expanded its influence worldwide. So, ibig sabihin, nasa mahigit 100 ang membro ng United Nations and it still influence worldwide. Ibig sabihin, worldwide siyang nag-i-influensya ng human rights.
Good day and Assalamualaikum. I am Manar Salik, the second reporter. The next topic that we will discuss is about Universal Declaration of Human Rights articles. So before we proceed to the articles, let me briefly discuss how and when the UN adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So human rights is simply a group of moral principles and values regardless in ethnicity, religions, age, and the UN adopted the UDHR on December 1948, which declared the articles restoring the dignity and respect for human lives after the group of people or group of men caused the World War II.
Article number 1. Right to equality. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights.
The examples of this may include discrimination because of the race, sexual orientation, languages, and more. like religion. In this article, it says that pagkakapante-pantay, we don't have the rights tuyain ng bawat pagkatao ng kahit na sino.
Article number 2, freedom from discrimination. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedom set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, and other status. It says also that there is no distinction in political basis and in other nations' sovereignty. Article 3, right to life, liberty, personal security. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person. Isa itong obligasyon para protektahan ng mga inosenteng mamamayan sa mga armadong forces and with their guns because they are deserving to live freely and with freedom. Article 4, freedom from slavery. No one shall be held in slavery or served to slavery, and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all forms.
It's like someone actually owns you like a piece of property. You are living with their premises, but they don't actually own you at all.
Article 5, freedom from torture and degrading treatment. No one should be subjected to torture, to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment.
In this country, we always see criminal as a devil. We punish them, we degrade them, and we torture them that we don't know na nagiging masamang tao na pala tayo. That's why we need to give them a freedom of change and respect them.
Article 6, right to recognition as a person before the law. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law.
This article, every person has the right to enjoy their human rights.
Article 7, right to equality before the law. All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law.
Bawa nito ay yung sa ibang bansa, ang may kakayahan lang na mag-complain against or because of violation is mga lalaki.
Article 8, right to remedy by competent tribunal. Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunal.
Every persons are equal before courts and tribunal. Ang mga criminal ay pinaglalaban nila yung mga rights nila, and it shall be entitled with fair and public hearing.
Article 9, freedom from arbitrary arrest and exile. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile.
Article, everyone has the right to liberty and security of the person. Anyone who is arrested will be informed or shall be informed, and at the time of arrest, they will promptly inform of any charges against them.
Article 10, right to fair public hearing. Everyone is entitled in full equality to fair and public hearing by an interdependent impartial tribunal.
Article, it is like Article 8, but the difference of these two, the Article 8 have competent, while the Article 10 is have freedom of fair public hearing.
Article 11, right to be considered innocent until proven. Number 1, change with the penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proved guilty. Number 2, no one shall be held guilty of any penal offense on account of any act or omission.
In other words, no one will be imprisoned merely on the ground of inability to fulfill contractual obligations.
Article 12, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interfere with privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attack upon his honor and reputation. Article 13, right to free movement in and out of the country. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residences within the borders of the state. Number 2, everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and retain. Article 14, right to asylum in other countries from persecution. Number 1, everyone has the right to seek and enjoy in other countries. Number 2, this right may not be invoked. Article 15, right to a nationality and the freedom to change it. Number 1, everyone has the right to nationality. Number 2, no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality nor denied the rights to change his nationality. Article 16, right to marriage and family. Number 1, men and women of full age without any limitation due to religion and nationality have the right to marry. Number 2, marriage shall be entered with free and full consent of intending spouses. Number 3, the faculty is the natural and fundamental group of society entitled for protection. Article 17, right to own property. Number 1, everyone has the right to own property alone as well as in association with others. Number 2, no one should be arbitrarily deprived of his.
Assalamualaikum. The topic that I will discuss is about the human rights regime in the Philippines. Human rights are a very sensitive topic, especially in developing countries like the Philippines. So human rights violations are the systemic effect of deep-rooted institutional problems. The human rights regime in our country is the focus of the international community in the last decades due to a number of unexplained disappearances, questions, police practices, and various civil and political rights abuses. So in human rights is a very sensitive topic in Philippines because it is not, however, limited to the issues of extrajudicial killings and disappearances. The country faces problems related to its political, economic, social, and cultural conditions that breed many more human rights problems. The international community is focusing the human rights regime in our country because they should play a significance in helping to build the capacity of a government. The legislature, media, and civil society in every country or on that country. Let's proceed to the creation of the Commission on Human Rights or CHR. In the Philippines is embodied its fundamental law under the Article 13, Section 18 of the 1987 Constitution. The CHR is mandated to secure the welfare of the human rights in the country. So it means the CHR, or in Filipino, Komisyon sa Karapatang Pantao, is an independent constitution office created under the 1987 Constitution of the Philippines, with the primacy function of investigating form of human rights violations involving civil and political rights in the Philippines. So as an independent human rights institution, the Commission of Human Rights is committed to ensure the primacy of all human rights. So the 1987 Philippines Constitution gave the CHR the mandate to protect and promote the rights and dignity of every human being in the country. So here are the mandates of the CHR. So number 1, investigate on its own or on complaint by any party all forms of human rights violations involving the civil and political rights. So number 2, adapt its operational guidelines and rules of procedure and cite for contempt for violations thereof in accordance with the rules of court. Number 3, provide appropriate legal measures for the protection of the human rights of all persons within the Philippines as well as the Filipino residing abroad, and provide for preventive measure and legal aid services to the underprivileged whose human rights have been violated or need protections. Number 4, exercise visitorial over jail prisoners or detentional facilities. Number 5, establish a continuing program of research, education, and information to enhance the respect for the primacy of the human rights. Number 6, recommend the Congress effective measures to promote the human rights and to provide for compensation to victims of violations of the human rights or their families. Number 7, monitor the Philippines' governance or government compliance with international treaty obligations on human rights. Number 8, grant immunity from prosecution to any person whose testimony or whose possession of documents or other evidence is necessary or convenient to determine the truth in any investigation conducted by it or under its authority. Number 9, request the assistance of any department, bureau, office, or agency in the performance of its function. So number 10, appoint its officers and employees in according with the law. And the last but not the least is the perform such other duties and functions as may provided by the law. So the CHR is also tasked to investigate the human rights violations, adopt rules of procedure, and issues contempt citation. It can take the legal action for the protection of human rights and the citizens of the Philippines. So recently, the focus of the CHR is on human rights protection, promotion, and advisory, and has devoted its strategic direction with four main centers. So here is the four main centers of the CHR specialization ceramic programs. So first is the Child Rights Center. So Child Rights Center are the human rights of children with particularly attention to the rights of special protections and care afforded to the minors. It prevents the continuing cases of a child abuse. Second is the gender equality and women's rights. So it is when people of all gender have equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities. Everyone is affected by gender inequality. Women, men, trans, and gender diverse people, children, and families. And women's rights is defined as the freedoms, liberties, and opportunities that women have, especially to be treated equal to and given the some legal rights as a man. So, the Center of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights are the freedoms of privilege and entitlements that individuals and communities required to live a life of dignity. And the last but not the least is the Center of Crisis, Conflict, and Humanitarian Rights. So it has any event or period that will lead or may lead to an unstable and dangerous situations affecting an individuals or all of the society, and conflicts, a clash or disagreement. So the human rights have considered that in the armed conflict.
Good day and Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Al-reagan and I am a reporter number 4. So before we continue to my topic, let's talk about social justice. So what is social justice? Social justice is all about working towards a more equal society. Part of this is ensuring that people are treated with dignity and respect by those with public power. Also the main goal of human rights. However, human rights are not just values. Social justice is an underlying principle for a peaceful and prosperous coexistence within and among nations. We uphold the principles of social justice when we promote gender equality or the rights of indigenous peoples and migrants. We advance social justice when we remove barriers that people face because of gender, age, race, ethnicity, religion, culture, or disability. In order to uphold these principles of social justice and remove some of the barriers that people face, we as a society need to ensure that people are treated with dignity, treated with respect, treated fairly, listened to, and have a say over their lives. These values, as well as being essential for social justice, are the very heart of human rights. Social justice is all about working towards a more equal society. Part of this is ensuring that people are treated with dignity and respect by those with public power. Also the main goal of human rights. However, human rights are not just values. Human rights are set out in a law, and they set the rules on how the state should treat individuals. This means human right can be a powerful tool to enable us to achieve social justice, anchoring our action in the law rather than values alone, which can be stretched or become optional, especially in difficult times or situations. So let's proceed to the social justice and protection of rights. In spite of the UN declaration, there are still atrocities that happen every single day, all parts of the world. According to the International Human Rights Advocates, Amnesty International, and Human Rights Watch, there were still large-scale violations in over 160 countries that they have observed in 2014. 2014 Human Rights Violation Overview, Amnesty International. War crimes were carried out in 18 countries. Armed militia abuses were recorded in 35 countries. Refugees were left homeless and have resorted to desperate means by using rafts to escape Syria and other war-torn regions, whereby an estimate of 3,400 people might have died. Restriction of the freedom of speech was evident in 119 of 160 countries, and where journalists were frequently harassed, threatened, and even killed. Unlawful imprisonment of individuals was evident in 62 of 160 countries. Unjust trials were seen in 92 of 160 countries where the accused was not subjected to a fair trial. Torture was recorded in 131 of 160 countries. Emergency abortion, where the life of the woman is in danger or in cases of rape, are banned in 28 countries. Discriminatory policies against the LGBT were seen in 78 countries. Here in the Philippines, according to Human Rights Watch, our country has been a hotbed of human rights abuses. In the same year, 2014, the Human Rights Watchdog has duly recorded and observed the following. 2014 Human Rights Violation Overview, Human Rights Watch: killing of media personnel, unexplained allegedly forced disappearance, alleged death squads against political targets, militants, environmentalists, tribal leaders, and civilians, police use of torture, and unlawful arrest and unjust trial against alleged criminals. And that's all, guys. Thank you. I hope you'll understand it well because I read it well for you. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, ma'am. So I'm Saris Dalma Maulana. I will be continuing the report, Unit 5 at Article 1 to 30. So we are here at Article 18. We have Article 18, freedom of belief and religion. It says that everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. So ibig sabihin nito is we as in the different religions, like Muslim, Christian, has a different perspective and beliefs. So for example nito is bilang isang Muslim and Christian, siyempre may pagkakaiba talaga tayo ng paniniwala na dapat irespeto ng bawat isa. So that's the meaning of freedom of belief and religion. So we have Article 19, freedom of opinion and information. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expressions. Okay, this right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas thought through any media and regardless of frontlers. So ibig sabihin nito is bilang individual, we have our own opinions, perspective, to express our feelings to anyone or everybody, to make for example is if you have any opinions, you are freely to express your own opinion to anybody. So that's the right. So we have Article 20, right of peaceful and assembly and association. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful and assembly and association. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. Meaning to say, we as an individual, we have a right to choose on which assembly or association we wanted to belong in. So it says here na no one be compelled to be to an association. When we say compelled, it is ito ay kumbaga hindi siya pinipilit na pumasok sa isang association or assembly. So let us proceed to the article number 21, right to participate in government and in free elections. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country, direct or through freely chosen representative. Basically, pinaka magandang example nito is yung voting. Bilang isang netizen in our own country, we have our own perspective to make both on how or which representative we wanted to be or delegates we wanted to be both. So let us proceed to the Article 22, right to social security. It says everyone as a member of society has the right to social security, and it's entitled to realization through national effort and international cooperations. So it means we as a belonging in this society, we have a right being secured or to make us safe. We have here Article 23, right to desirable work and to join trade unions. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable condition of work, and to protect against unemployed. So ibig sabihin nito is we as an individual is meron tayong karapatan na mamili kung anong trabaho ang gustuhin natin, as long as nakapagtapos tayo ng pag-aaral. Syempre, for example nito is and also it says here na everyone can work without any discrimination. This is the relevant issues that we face today. Has the right to equal pay for equal work. Without any discriminate, we can work and equal pay, and also everyone who work has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself and his family and existence worthy of human dignity. That's right. So we have here, so let us proceed to article number 24 rather. It says here, right to rest and leisure. Everyone has the right to rest and leisure. It means when we say leisure is ito yung kumbaga may trabaho ka, pag sinabing leisure is ito yung free time mo or kumbaga bakanting oras mo, yung walang ginagawa or day off mo, ganun siya. So it says here na everyone has the right to rest and leisure. Syempre naman lahat naman tayo may karapatan na magpahinga. So yun. We have here Article 35, right to adequate living standards. It says here na everyone has the right to standard of living adequate for the health for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical cares, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployed, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. So, it means na motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance to children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. So, in this article 35, right and adequate and living standard. So, it more talk about on how family and individuals living their life in a standard way of living in adequate way and a well-being with himself and his family, including proper clothing, or in short, proper living. So we have here Article 26, right to education. Everyone has the right to education. Education should be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. So it means na we all of us are. So we have here Article 26, right to education. Everyone has the right to education. Education should be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. So we have all know na nung elementary school natin is everything is free. Baga wala tayong babayaran except sa mga projects na kaunti lamang. So sinasabi din dito na lahat lahat tayo bilang individual na ay may karapatan matuto or pumasok sa eskwelahan para matuto. And it says here na technical and professional education should be made generally available, and higher education should be equal as accessible to all and on the basis of merit. So let us proceed to Article 27, right to participate in the cultural life of community. Everyone has the right to freely participate in the cultural life of the community. So it means for example of this is kumaga cultural programs can kumaga you are freely to participate or to attend, to share or to learn something new about any cultures in our communities. So let us proceed to Article 28. Okay, so now we'll proceed to Article 28, right to a social order that articulates these documents. Everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedom set forth in the Declaration can be fully realized. So, which means human has the right to such order of social cohesion that will be guaranteed the enjoyment of the rights and freedoms enjoyed by him. In my opinion, in this context, peace become one of human obligation taken from Declaration. Okay, now let's proceed to Article 29. Community duties essential to free and full development. Everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. In the exercise of the rights and freedoms, everyone should be subject only in such limitation as are determined by laws solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of others, and in meeting the just requirements of the morality, public order, and general welfare in the democracy. These rights, these rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purposes and the principles of the United Nations. So now we will proceed to Article 30, freedom from state or personal interference in the above rights. Nothing in democracy may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity to perform an act aim at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein. So in Article 30 has been called limits on tyrants. It gives all of us freedom from state or personal interference in the rights in all preceding articles. However, it also stresses that we may not exercise these rights in contraventions of the purposes of the United Nations.